Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everyone? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan for what's going to be a fascinating Inside the Birds. And Adam, I've already given this title, this podcast the title. It's going to be a fan appreciation podcast for Inside the Birds. And you ask, why would it be a fan appreciation? We'll get into it a little bit deeper into the podcast, but I'm proud of the Eagles fan base. I'm proud of the people that listen to this and react to us, because I feel like they deserve some credit in this podcast, and I'll explain why a little bit later. You're back from the owners' meetings. It was a very interesting owners' meetings, to say the least. We have a rule change that we'll talk about. We've had the Eagles speaking, both Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni. And by the way, what's this with these arranged owner press conferences? That's new. That was like a little softball. Like, you used to have to catch the owners coming out of the meeting. I don't remember arranged press conferences for owners when I went a couple of years ago.
You mean Jeffrey Lurie's had them? I've been actually 2 or 3 of them over the years.
Because the PR staff would get them, and you would kind of stand around them in a circle.
No, they had.
He never had the Eagles backdrop behind him, sitting down, addressing everybody.
I could tell you this: when Howie Roseman got his job back in 2016, he sure as hell did, because I was there.
Oh, yeah, it was big, yeah.
And I was shocked at, and again, we're going to get into it. I was at this one, and I'm like, did he just say what I think he said? And he was fired up in that one in 2016, and I was, that was 6 years ago. I've been into every owners meeting since, I'm going to say 2002, except for the 2 we missed, the last 2 because of COVID. Mm-hmm. But I was, I got to tell you, I've been a bunch of these, not just Eagles, but other owners over the years. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey, the good thing about Jeffrey Lurie is you never know quite exactly what he's going to say. Sometimes, as you know, you've covered him for decades. You never know quite what he's going to say, which is a good thing, mostly a good thing.
Right.
Some are soft, where he doesn't say much. This one, he sure as hell said a lot. And I was like, whoa, did he just say that? So This is great. Cannot wait to talk about it.
Yeah. So let me ask you, who took it harder on the chin this week? Chris Rock or Carson Wentz? One more physical, the other one more verbally. But
I think it was 3 weeks ago, I taped this interview for my friends at Sports Grid, and I said, it's not Chris Ballard, despite what Chris Ballard said publicly, and he buried Wentz. Yeah. I said, I'm telling you, it's the owner that did not want him back. Ballard actually wanted him back, but obviously he had a hard talk with him. No, it was actually the owner, Jim Irsay, who I guess a cult source said to me, go back to the comment Irsay said on Twitter. I don't know when this was. I don't know if it was after the Jaguars game. I don't know. Maybe it was leading up. I'm not sure, but he made an innocuous quote, which, well, it's not innocuous now, but people thought it was. Like, it wasn't a big deal. Not to read into it, but sure as hell is now. And you're right. I mean, it's so embarrassing what Irsay said about Wentz. I didn't know. Look, I know that I heard privately that Irsay was incensed at Wentz because of what happened leading up to week 17 or 18, I guess it was, not practicing. Leading up to the Jacksonville game, and he was terrible, obviously. Though for most of the season, Greg Cosell told us he's actually pretty solid.
Yeah,
but
he was like 27-7 until that last bad game.
But it's not just the blow up game; it's a lack of leadership, is what I was told.
Accountability.
100%. You just wonder if this is. I mean, obviously now 3 teams in 3 years. At some point, Wentz is going to have to take responsibility for everything. He's just, at some point, he's got to be a better leader. He's got to understand, like, the best quarterbacks take responsibility, even when they don't think it's their fault. It's on me. I did it. I got to be better. And until he does, he's going to be a journeyman. It's the way it is.
You wonder if Washington will react differently based on what's come out, or if they were always going to draft a quarterback anyway, or if they feel maybe we really need to draft a quarterback even with Wentz here. I don't know how they envisioned him when they brought him on as a long-term fix or a bridge. I don't know what they were thinking. I just know that they've received him warmly as he's been given the cold shoulder on the way out. So, but if I were them, I would be looking at quarterbacks in this draft and trying to, make sure I got somebody waiting in the wings with Carson Wentz there as my starter.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got a lot of work. They need major help at wide receiver opposite McLaurin.
Mm-hmm.
They need a little bit of help on defense. They're getting a bunch of offensive linemen back. They need tight end help, but they don't have a bad roster. They just have certain needs. But you're making a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, on contract structure, they have a decision to make in March again on a roster bonus. So I mean, you hate to be it one and done for once, but at this point, he's in such a free fall. I don't know. The
Mm-hmm.
sad thing is, from a talent standpoint, he's really not lost a lot. But from everything else, it is an inability to understand what he needs to do to become a great quarterback or even a very good quarterback. He just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
understand the leadership issue, which
Yeah.
dogged him. This is never a problem when you're playing elite level because nobody says anything. When you're not, it all comes out.
There you go. All right. Well, we've got some good stuff on the platform this week on Inside the Birds. The new Intel with Greg Cosell is out. It's up on our podcast platform, and by Friday, it'll be on YouTube. Thought it was a great idea. It was actually Greg's idea, Adam, and a really good one to do a kind of a part 2 on wide receivers because it's such a deep draft of wide receivers this year, and we added tight ends to make it pass catchers. So last week we did the kind of the elite wide receivers who were expected to go in the first round, and then a couple of sleepers he threw in there like Velus Jones and Tyquan Thornton. And then this week we did some of the receivers you'll go in the second round and maybe early day 3, along with more sleepers and then the really good tight ends. So some really good stuff, some fascinating observations. I gathered from all of it that maybe not enough has been talked about for guys like Pickens from Georgia, who Greg really liked, Sky Moore,
Yeah, it's my
who
guy.
Greg, and then of course the guy from Boise State, Khalil. The last name is now escaping me. Khalil somebody from Boise State, another good receiver that Greg liked. And in general, Greg likes this class of wide receivers, and it may not have like a he specifically said, and I think that this kind of is a microcosm for this draft from the intel I get. He said none of these receivers really projects to be like a Jamar Chase, right? You're not going to see a guy go top 3 or top 4 because they are just so physically superior and so talented that they're almost can't miss. But there's a lot of good receivers who can be good players, and you can find impact players as late as, round 2, maybe early round 3 also, that some guys can come in and make plays. And that's good. Sometimes you don't see it that deep.
Yeah, I was Khalil Shakir you're talking about.
Shakir,
Greg,
thank you.
Boise, he loves him. It's funny because I think everybody knows now. They know Greg's work. Our listeners and subscribers have a love affair with Greg.
I think one said he could listen to Greg break down dishwashers for an hour. And
I saw that, and I was on the plane. I was looking at I was looking at Twitter, and I was laughing my ass off. Like, what a great line, man!
Yeah.
Look, this is a passion project for Geoff and I. We're not making a mint on this, but we want you guys to be better fans, smarter than all your friends. And we're going to do everything we can to bring those kind of people to you. And Greg is obviously a close friend of Geoff and I. And we've developed a great relationship with him. I've known him for nearly 20 years. And I've seen his career grow and his ability to evaluate. He learned a lot from Ron Jaworski, by the way.
Yeah.
God, a lot of it, particularly the quarterback position. But you guys get Greg, and the great thing is he started because he looks at all the comments. I think he must look through our Twitter or Inside the Birds because, as you said, he came up with the receivers. In fact, I think a couple guys said, "Hey, what about David Bell?" And unfortunately, Greg's evaluation isn't very good on his. I mean, in terms of being positive, but he just goes by what he sees. But he knows there are a bunch of receivers we didn't cover. Greg said, "Hey guys, if you don't mind, could we cover the second half of these receivers?" We were like, "Sure, great idea." So we did that, and we covered a good group of the tight ends. And by the way, the Eagles are definitely in the market for another tight end. They need to add one more.
Sure.
So it wouldn't shock me if they drafted one in the third round.
Not at all. Not at all. You're also missing out if you're not checking out our series that we're doing with Andrew DeCecco. He's interviewing small school prospects who are getting ready for the NFL draft. The latest one with Coastal Carolina's edge rusher. His name is Jeffrey Gunter, and this dude is personality. He was a really fun interview. Andrew did a great job getting him to open up, particularly about a game his last year when they played BYU. And Zach Wilson, a late hit on Zach. Well, no, not a late hit, just a hit on Zach Wilson that led to a brawl. But Gunter was great. Interesting prospect, long, rangy, explosive off the edge. So, that's the type of player that a lot of NFL teams try to look for to, blossom into something more, but at least into a situational pass rusher. And the kid's really smart, knows Teron Jackson well, obviously, Eagles the defensive end, who is also from Coastal Carolina. So, really good interview. Check it out. You'll really be entertained. I think this has been a fantastic series. Really proud of Andrew with what he's been able to accomplish with it as well. And we'll keep that series going. And of course, make sure you're checking out InsideTheBirds.com. We've got content up there. Please be a subscriber to it. It's free. Get it to your RSS, to your feed. Read off stuff that we've got. We try to put up new content every single day. Pretty soon we'll be getting into some draft stuff that we'll have up on the website. Andrew does a draft notebook as well. So a lot of good stuff on Inside the Birds this weekend as we get closer also to the NFL draft. I can't believe we're less than, technically by days, we're less than a month away, right? April 28th is the draft. And, today is the first for most people listening to this. So 28 days and it all kicks off. I'm very excited. We have a lot of intel, you and I, to gather because we're going to start really, the podcast pretty soon. This Inside the Birds podcast will turn toward evaluating what we're hearing on players, what the Eagles are looking at. And I really look forward to kind of getting into the prospects. I feel like we're a little bit well-versed now to answer some questions.
Sure. Look, this one we're good because the GM, the head coach, and the owner spoke, and there was so much good information and great discussion points. And I know a lot of people want to kind of know what we think, and they have their own opinions, kind of when we could further explain each guy who spoke and what they meant, what the reality is. We'll get to that, and then we've got a draft note. I know you've got a really good nugget coming.
Yeah, I might as well just say it now while we're talking about the draft. So one of the top prospects in the draft is Cincinnati's cornerback Ahmad Gardner, called Sauce Gardner. He is slated to have a top 30 visit with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm told it's going to be on April 10th. So in a little bit more than a week, he will be visiting with the Eagles. And obviously, I think that indicates two things. One, obviously, the Eagles are doing a lot of diligence, but you tend to do the diligence on the guys you think you can get, right? From everything I hear, it sounds like Ahmad's going to be the first cornerback taken somewhere along the line from the end of the year till now. He kind of leapfrogged over Derek Stingley as the top cornerback prospect. Now, something can change, but right now he is. And it seems like he's going to be somewhere in that 5 to 10 range. So the Eagles, if they continue to do their investigation on him and really like him, if they want him, they're going to have to fight to get to the top to get him.
And they've got the ammunition because, man, they really need a young corner to start. They don't have one who's ready to start on the outside opposite Slay. And Slay's also 31 years old. So if they're ever going to trade up for somebody, he would be that guy.
Right.
He is a super clean prospect. Tape's fantastic. Everything I've heard has been good about him. Super competitive. His PFF grade is phenomenal because it does match up to tape. I know people have issues with PFF, but what I'm told is that the tape is fantastic. Was actually talking to someone in the league about him at the owners' meetings. We were just exchanging notes about what the word is on him. So. Look, you hate to say can't miss, but I mean, everything's really good. And now, as you just noted here, it's a good nugget. So I do wonder, look, the Eagles have 3 first-round picks. They're perfectly positioned to trade up to get him if they want to do that. We know they have other needs, but opposite corner Slay is a major need. You want to argue it's the first need? I'm not going to argue with it. It's absolutely a major need, and they have to do something there.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. In fact, I've written down, by the way, we're going to do this in a future pod. I've written down all the teams that have had multiple, 3 or more draft picks over the last 10 to 12 years and who they picked. Yeah. And we'll go through it because it's interesting. I think when you read through it, there's a strong argument to be made, depending on what picks you have, right, that if you have the ability to maneuver either up or even down, you should use it because the results are a mixed bag, to say the least.
We will have this for Monday's show. I want one more opinion, but I'm pretty certain we're going to have it for Monday. Okay. So every year we tell you how many first-round grades there are, based on the teams that we speak with.
Yeah.
Typically, Bill Polian told me it's usually 12 to 15. I want one more opinion from a high-ranking executive, and we'll put on Monday's show, because this will plan to exactly what the Eagles are dealing with here with those three, sort of middle first-round picks. And that could, by the way, that could determine if they would trade up for a guy like Sauce Gardner, because not only we know he's not going to get anywhere close to where they're picking, but are there any other players that would meet their needs that they could potentially trade up for?
That's a great example. Great question. All right, I'm going to do the same. We'll both kind of share our intel on what teams see this first round like. Because what I've been told before we, kind of get on, what I've been told is this draft seems to have more depth at some good positions like wide receiver, tight end, offensive tackle, than maybe it has blue chip talent. I don't know that you're hearing a lot of guys rave about the eliteness of the talent, maybe in the top 10 or 12 compared to some other drafts, but they certainly like the depth of it. So that's key and important to know. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of movement in the first round this year because of that. So we'll see what happens there. All right, we've been telling you about Woodloch Pines, and the weather's getting warmer, allegedly. I mean, it was cold this week, but it is supposed to get warmer. It's
today.
Start thinking about your vacation. I know, right? It's going to start thinking about your vacation plans. Let me tell you about Woodloch Pines. It's nestled in the picturesque Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, and Woodloch Pines has been named the best family resort in the United States by USA Today, in addition to being voted in the top 1% of hotels worldwide on TripAdvisor.
Wow.
Woodloch is a destination unlike any other, a place where family comes closer together, whether it's a family of blood, bond, or friendship. Woodloch's signature warm hospitality offers a truly unique vacation experience steeped in traditions and warm, personalized service. And if I can add my personal spin, I think that last part is as true can be. The warm, personalized service that my family got when we were there a couple of weeks ago was second to none. So I would recommend everybody take a trip up to Woodloch Pines and enjoy it, because it is a truly fantastic place. Where it's also a fantastic place, where you just were, West Palm Beach, Florida, where the owners' meetings were. I have family who lives there. My mother lives there, so I'm very familiar with the area. The Breakers is beautiful. Did you enjoy at least the scenery and the nice ocean breeze, Adam?
Yeah, I got to tell you though, I miss the Biltmore in Phoenix. That's
some places are just extra special, and the Biltmore is that. Yes,
I miss smoking a cigar, and there's a little the fire pit there. It's just and it gets really cool at night there.
Yeah,
Breakers is fine. It's an older hotel. It's been it's fine, but it's crazy. Yeah. The prices to stay there, $1,600 a night. I mean, you can't be serious.
Yes. I've only seen the place. I've never actually stayed there.
Oh, and by the way, I won't say the former GM. I'm talking to a former GM about doing some stuff with us, not our buddy Rick Spielman.
Okay.
And this guy couldn't even get in.
What?
Here's what happened. Like they gave me a hard time. Like I tried to pick up my credential Sunday night. They wouldn't let me. I had to get someone to vouch for me just to get in.
Wait, you had a credential, right?
No. Here's the problem. It was locked up with the NFL because they closed the credential area at 5:00.
Mm-hmm.
So I got there at 7:00. So there's like a security booth. They wouldn't let me go, and then they finally relented after someone vouched for me. But a former GM said that who we were going to meet, he said he couldn't get in. He go, he's so frustrated, he just left. He just
that's crazy.
I mean, what is it? I don't understand. Like, it's a hotel. You basically had to have reservations there. They were making super secure with all these owners there, I guess. So, oh well.
Well, you never had that problem at the Biltmore. I know that the Biltmore is fantastic.
Not at all. Right.
Yeah, there's something about being in Arizona if you haven't been out there. If you're from the East Coast like us, right, where it's like 85 degrees on a day in March or April, and you think like you should be sweating. Like if it was 85 degrees here, you'd be sweating, you'd be disgusting. But
humidity, right?
The air is so crisp and dry that you're actually in a pair of pants and a nice short sleeve, and you're not uncomfortable at all. It's the most amazing thing in the world.
That owners meetings in Biltmore is the most. I mean, that's the one where they have the most.
Yeah.
The winter meeting, and then they have a spring meeting, by the way, in May, which I've only been to a couple times. It's just really chill,
right?
But this one is obviously the rule changes are big, and by the way, the Eagles, both of the proposals they passed. I mean, they put in passed. Mm-hmm. How about that?
How about that? How about that? So let's talk about that really quickly before I get into why this is going to be a
Sure.
fan appreciation podcast. So
Okay.
the overtime rule that passed is the one that the Eagles and the Colts both submitted. And basically what it says is it's not too much of well, it's a big deviation, but it's not like the whole 2-point conversion thing that I think the Titans
Yes.
wanted to add in. Basically says that both teams need to have the ball at least once to make it fair. And so that's going to happen. My only gripe with it, I was in favor of just leaving it as it is. I like the drama of it, and the fact that people talk about it even when they're mad is good for the NFL. But that's fine. They change it. They think it's more fair. I do agree it's more fair because I was never with the just get a stop crowd because the rules favor the offense. If the rules didn't favor the offense so heavily, I'd be with the just get a stop crowd, but they don't. So my only issue is if you've now deemed this to be the fairest way to decide a game in overtime, why are you only using it in the postseason? Why wouldn't you do it in the regular season as well?
Exactly.
I don't like that inconsistency.
It's what the league has said over the years when they do these things, when they change sort of rules like this. It's kind of like a trial.
Mm-hmm.
What trial is there? It's simple. And Rich McKay confirmed this based on the research. They did 10 years of research. Now, I would disagree with one thing that Rich said. Rich said, the fact that the Kansas City game that just played had nothing to do with it. I'm like, of course it had something to do with it. That's the thing that put it over the top. That's what fired people up. Now, he said, yeah, they did research. Well, let's not forget the 2018 game was the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
Was the first Mahomes overtime game with Brady.
Right.
And those who really love football, like all of you listening, it was a travesty that Mahomes didn't get the ball back.
Yep.
And that bothered me as just a fan. I just remember like being really frustrated. And then you had this one. Now this one obviously was going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I get what Rich meant. But this last one put it over the top. We want to see great quarterback play. Even if you're not, most of you listening are Eagles fans, but we just want to. If you're watching the playoffs and the Eagles aren't in it, and you're watching, you want to see a great quarterback play. Now Mahomes doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore, so we'll see how far they go. But nevertheless. We love great quarterback play, and the fans should not be robbed. And Roger Goodell, for all the criticism that he gets, he's a very fan-friendly commissioner, and he does have a say in it. He does, as a couple GMs said to me privately, he definitely vocal when he wants something passed. Or this one was, I'd say landslide, but it got easily passed. It was a little bit surprising how easily it got passed, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it feels like the NFL, they're always a little bit reactive instead of proactive. It feels like, and they almost had a weird, they had a weird season-ending Week 18 type of scenario. I think it was the which game was it? It was the Chargers Raiders game, and that if both teams had just knelt right and played to a tie, then they would have both made it, and the Steelers would have been out.
Yep.
Okay. That's because you have the ability to play to a tie that could have happened. Now, obviously, it didn't happen that way, and they didn't. There would have been a lot of trouble if there was. But the point is, a game could theoretically end Week 18 in a tie, even after overtime, that forces some other team in and those teams out. And then people are going to say that's not fair, right? They're going to say, they're going to rail about it. Why didn't you just have the overtime rules in place, the new rule where both teams get a chance to win? I'm probably like projecting a little bit, but I just feel like it doesn't make sense to me that you wouldn't have it both in the regular season and overtime. You're just having it for overtime. But I digress. I don't care that much to begin with because I like chaos, so it's fine with me whichever way it was.
And then the other one got passed, which I would have bet the house it would pass because. Though I'm not sure exactly. I know the Eagles were out in front of this. Howie Roseman, he had the interview with the team website. When I remember seeing him, like, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. Then 1 week later at the combine, he said the same stuff. He's pretty fired up about it, and he's very friendly with a lot of GMs. And there were 3 other teams that turned in the proposal as well, and that turned in, and that was agreed to. And basically, if you want to be assistant GM in the National Football League, the team could block you until June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Or personnel director. It's for secondary jobs, and secondary, i.e., assistant GM, personnel director.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not great. I mean, I find it hard to believe because personnel guys' contracts generally are 10 to 14 days after the draft, is the way it was explained to me. So why the hell would you keep someone to June 30th? It's also not very fair. But anyway, it's till June 30th. So teams now are going to have a hard time. They could do a wink, wink, nod, nod. Hey, I'm going to hire you, but we will hold the job open for you.
Oh, that's great. So you're losing a guy to the Giants, and then you got to hold on to him now until June 30th.
Right. But I got to think in that case, you got to have good communication between the executive who worked for the general manager. Say, hey, man, I know you're friends with this guy. Are you going to leave? You do want to leave, and that's when the guy goes, yeah, we've been talking. They know everybody. They're friends. I mean, it's not a secret. We had reported Ian Cunningham and Ryan Poles are very close friends.
Right.
We reported at the time that they've wanted to work together for years. Look, it's just natural. This is the way the business is, and good for them. They got to work together. But the only problem that teams have is you don't want them leaving their. This is what Howie Roseman said in his interviews. They don't want these guys leaving with their secrets, with their draft boards. I get it. I totally respect that. But I also understand like guys should be able to work together, and that's kind of where they're at.
Yeah. There wasn't a perfect situation, but I'm not really thinking that this situation is any better than the last one. I agree with you on that. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts here. I'm going to say this is a fan appreciation podcast. Why? Because from being here and listening to all the press conferences that were going on while you were there, I was almost even for me, for covering this team as long as I have, I was a little taken aback by the amount of manure that was shoveled by the leaders of the team, starting from the top, Jeffrey Lurie, down to Howie Roseman. Nick Sirianni, not so much, but he's new to this game.
I don't know about that.
You're right. You know what? To be honest with you, there was from him too. So the manure was shoveled, and the spin cycle was working so hard that, I'm surprised that the coils didn't just come off.
Right.
And yet, when that happens, a lot of times we get like people, like we might report something and then somebody at the top comes out in a press conference and says the opposite, and people come at us and be like, "Oh, you said this or you said
Been
that."
There, done that. Yeah, we both.
Listen, the fans were the fans were amazing. They didn't buy anything that the Eagles brass was saying. They were not falling hook, line, and sinker for some of the most disingenuous comments that you'll ever hear coming out of either Howie or Jeffrey or Nick's mouth. I mean, I listened to sports radio a lot in the aftermath just to see what the reaction would be. And I, checked out, our Twitter accounts and some of the ads, which I don't normally do. And people were really, really on to the fact that they felt that the Eagles were just shoveling it. And so we'll get into some of the things that were said.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that as someone whose job it is to be unbiased, to be objective, to kind of smell a rat if there's a rat out there and point it out. And it's not always a fun thing to do. We don't like all the time telling fans that this happened, that's not great, or that happened, that's not, because we know that sometimes people take offense to that. No, that's not my team, or you're getting your no. This time, I think the fans were listening to this saying this is just BS, and they have a right to feel that way. They really do.
You do. I saw them. Yeah. I mean, when I was removing the new spam, we have new foreign spam. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen on our YouTube. I don't know. I don't understand this, how it gets there, folks. I don't. It's pretty.
I like
foul.
how you're the official spam remover of the ITB platform.
I need to pitch in, and it's pretty foul. So, I mean, I saw the translation. What the hell is this? Like, we curbed it for like 6 months. We had the Russian spam. Now we got this crap. Anyway, people. Look, we're going to get into it, and we tell the truth here. I'll say this about Jeffrey Lurie. I appreciate his willingness to address some stuff. Our view is the truth. We'll take it a step further. What he said in our report from 3 years ago. Others have reported stuff too. My man Tim McManus. I love how he had questions prepared and he went after it. Kudos to him. He's a good buddy of ours. I was sitting right behind him, and I had something else I was going to get into, but I was like, let the locals, they cover the team closely, so let's see where they go here. And it was pretty good.
T-Mac brought receipts, man. He came with
he had it
written out there.
Well, the reason is because the guys have not had a chance, and gals too,
Yep.
to talk to Jeffrey in what, a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, he used to talk more. He used to talk once in spring training to give you a kind of the state of the team type thing. Not spring training, training camp.
Yeah,
So I don't think he's did that last year. If I recall,
probably
I don't
COVID
think.
related, right?
What's that?
COVID related, because he did
Oh yeah,
the
maybe.
Doug Peterson firing and explained it. That was from this compound in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Yeah, he actually talked about that. Yeah, and he now see. Here's funny. Here's something funny. I think he means what he says. Right. I've covered the guy for a couple of decades here, as you have. I mean, he did say in passing, and I caught this. He said, "Hey, I really look forward to these." And I think he was not being sarcastic. I think.
I don't know. I have a theory on
See,
how he
serious?
answers questions, though. I we'll get into that when we talk about him.
Okay.
But let's start with Howie.
Okay.
What was your big takeaway from things Howie said?
Look, the Derek Barnett, the love that Sirianni had for Barnett. I mean,
Oh
talk about
man,
eye
that's
rolling.
you're right. Oh,
We'll get into that, but I can't pin down. I don't know yet. Is it the GM? He hates to let his players go that he drafted and all that. It's usually the older players.
mm-hmm.
I've talked to so many people about Barnett over the years, particularly teams that play the Eagles. He's a little bit better in some things than we think, but the problem is he's just not a consistent player. He never has been. He's a flash player, and then you don't hear from for 3 or 4 games. It's not good enough. Not acceptable, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
No, you're right. And there were other defensive ends that you could have taken a chance on for similar money, right? And just said maybe he's a more disciplined player. Maybe
Yeah,
he's not going to come with fluctuating weights. Like how Derek Barnett has done that.
yeah.
Maybe we can just there is a little bit of a tone deafness to it because the fans were done with this guy. I mean, but listen, you can't listen to that. You have to decide who's best for your team. I just don't know that they couldn't have found another defensive end to give them the similar production that Derek Barnett
Oh,
gives them.
well, here's
And
what I would have liked the
less
GM and head coach to say. If you're gonna say this guy deserves to be back and how much you like him, why don't you break down his tape for us? What did
Mhm.
you see specifically that warrants him coming back?
That's fair.
That's
I mean,
all
you don't
I
mean
would-
visually. You mean like the way Greg will say it. Greg Cosell
right.
breaks
Why
something down.
why
Tell,
not? I
tell
mean,
me
they have better
Derek Barnett.
acquisition too.
Yeah. Tell me what Derek Barnett has done that
Right.
we don't see. That's a good point.
I know about the ankle flexion. We talked about this like 3 or 4 years ago. Like that's what the tape showed coming out of Tennessee, and he had some very unique skill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I found this stuff. Now I'll give Sirianni credit for this. I assume he's telling the truth. I know you're saying shoveling the BS.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is the part we've never talked about. I didn't know that they like him as much as that. As you said, it's clear to me being there. They like him a lot better than not only we do, and the reporters there and the public. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this about some of the comments from on our message boards and so forth. This surprised me. I thought it'd be all negative. It wasn't all negative because they see him as a rotational player. We'll get into his contract later. There's still some conflicting information out there, but we'll give you the best that we've gotten from 2 sources.
Right.
And we're working a little bit more because I want to get this stuff right, but we have a pretty good gist of it. They did
Yeah.
something very unique, which I've never seen them do before on a re-signing. It's odd, but in the end, they wanted this guy back as a rotational player. I get it. It's really a 1-year structure, which is what we were expecting with a little bit of fully guaranteed money in year 2, but you could cut him for it, whatever, not much. But fact of the matter is, they wanted this guy back. They let the free agency play out, and they got him at a decent price. But I don't know what they see. That's why are you paying for guys who are not consistent enough? I get he's young enough to bring back, but what do you see that shows you that he's worthy of coming back, that he can get better?
Yeah, I mean, I did in the last podcast. I defended the concept of signing him, saying you were going to sign a veteran anyway. It was probably structured like a 1-year deal. I mean, so you bring back a guy who you're familiar with, but I was not anticipating that they were going to really kind of bend over backwards to praise him and almost make it seem like they wanted him from the beginning. The way they talked. So I can see that being very off-putting, and that was just the start of some things. Let's talk about Howie's response to the question about, the first round picks and him saying that he wants them to play and not waste the first year. Now, this is again, like, I just wish Howie didn't feel like he had to couch everything he says, right? I feel like he did. I don't understand how you can live in Philadelphia, understand the fan base, and not understand that no matter what you say, someone's going to pick it apart. So instead of trying to like polish something or spin something or beautifully wrap something, just say how you feel. Say what you think, and then let the people say what they're going to say afterward. The reality is they went after some big name guys. They didn't get him. They didn't get them. Okay. And they weren't going to go crazy beyond their budget for it. So if they didn't get a guy, they didn't get a guy, which is, I can support that. You can support that. Maybe fans don't, they say, oh, you should have overspent, whatever. Who cares what they say, right? The point is that was their approach, and they didn't get some guys. But Howie's making it sound like, oh, well, I wanted these first round picks to be able to play immediately. So what happens if you had signed Marcus Williams and drafted a safety? Is he going to play right away over Marcus Williams? No. What happens if you signed Allen Robinson and drafted Treylon Burks? You might not be able to start Treylon Burks right away.
Exactly. He would. Well, no, that was, you remember on the last show I brought up, are they going to be more or 11 personnel? We're going to get into that because it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Both Sirianni and Roseman basically said the same thing about wanting to get more targets for the key players and so forth, which tells you they want to pass the ball more. We'll see how that goes. Year two with the quarterback starting. We'll see how that goes. Sure. But
they may have even drafted differently, Adam, if they had gotten those guys. So
well,
Marcus Williams is a young player.
That would have ended the safety. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. If they would have signed Marcus Williams, they're not drafting the safety.
Yeah.
Early, especially early. They might have drafted one late.
Not early. Right. Yeah. Not early. So saying like, we wanted to be able to have these guys play is disingenuous. No, you went after guys, young guys in some positions, to be able to play for you for a while. So I just don't understand. There's nothing wrong with just saying what the real situation was.
I don't think he likes it out that they missed on players. It's okay. You made a great effort. Yeah. We clearly explain our reporting on the corner for Byron Jones. They went over market with their bid. They knew they had other bidders. They did the best that they could.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you could do about that. They made a significant push, we're told, on Allen Robinson. I mean, we've said this now for 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever the hell it is. We explained kind of what their thinking was. They wanted a veteran. They were going to sign a veteran. Now they didn't get him. They're going to do. I still believe they're going to do some significant receiver, whether it's a trade for a guy who's younger, who's not getting an extension, or whatever, wants out, who knows, or a veteran guy who's actually been in the league a while, or they're going to spend it on a high round pick. It's going to happen. They're going to do. Let's put it this way: they're going to do everything they can to do it. They gave you the answers to the test. It's not us saying it. They did it. They tried for Robinson, didn't work. They tried for Calvin Ridley, didn't work. They're telling you what they're doing. You don't need to guess. They've given you the roadmap.
Exactly. And why that they can't just discuss that, and they're worried about how that might look. Who cares? I mean, when the Eagles lose 2 games in a row, everybody gets fired. Everybody anyway. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter what the public perception at the time is. What matters is winning and losing. So if you think your process is good, you tell them this is our process. We missed on some guys. We're going to draft great guys instead, and we'll be an attractive place soon. Okay, we just made the playoffs. We plan to be even better next year. Fine, that's it. That's it. You don't have to like lie about, oh well, now we really want these first round picks to be able to play. Come on.
Look, I'm not going to say lies are strong, but
couch it or spin.
I didn't understand like why he went there, but. Well, I'll say this much. We'll remember these quotes if by a major surprise, if they use all 3 first-round picks, these guys aren't playing early, I don't want to hear it. I don't want that's it's funny because when you talk to teams like, they'd love the rookies to play, ideally, but it's not about the first year. It's about 4, 5, and 6 years. You want these guys to develop over time. Yeah, your first-round pick should play year 1. There's no excuse for it.
Right.
No matter how raw they might be, they should play. They should contribute at some point.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is, the owner said it. Jeffrey Lurie said it. They were in a transition year last year. They weren't expecting to make the playoffs. They did, though. Of course, they had a nice schedule to finish the season, but they did get in surprisingly. They had to build on that, and they've got the. I'll tell you what, they've got the ability to do something pretty good here. They could take a big jump. Like, I'm not saying a Super Bowl like they did in Peterson's second year, but they've got all these picks, and they've got a lot of cap space left. Not that they're going to do anything significant now. Watson's gone, and but there are some things that they can do. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
What do you think about him saying we're not an all-in team?
Well, to me, it tells you where they're at. But see, here's where I might again. I didn't have a chance to go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is, yeah, but you know what? Not that you're trying to be all in, but if you make again, let's say, just say for argument's sake, they keep all 3 first-round picks, and all guys play, they're gonna be much better because they're going to
theoretically, yes, they should be much better if these guys can play
all these positions. They know it. We all know. Everyone listening knows what their needs are. It's obvious what their needs are, and they do a great job of building. They do there's no statistics to back this up, but just as an observation, I don't think there's no team better. And I got to give Joe Banner. He was a big proponent of this, and obviously Andy Reid and Roseman would adopt this. Their ability to not rest on their laurels on their offensive line and look for the future, they're just really good at it. For whatever reason, they're just great at it. And I would fully expect them to do that. I mean, look, it wouldn't shock me if they drafted an offensive lineman in the first 2 picks. First 2 rounds? What would you?
No, it would not. Not at all, actually. No.
Yeah.
So. Well, let me ask you, if they had been able to trade for Calvin Ridley, and if Marcus Williams had accepted their offer,
oh boy,
do you think Howie would be saying that they were not an all-in team?
But see, I don't say that's all in. I think this is addressing needs. Does that mean they're all? Well, you have to define all in. What does that mean?
Well, I interpreted that as Howie saying we don't look at this as we're a couple of pieces away from being a Super Bowl contender. We're building toward that. But if you had brought Calvin Ridley here and you had gotten Marcus Williams to say yes to your offer and then tried to tell people you've not been all in, they're going to look at you like, what are you talking about? You just traded for one of the best receivers in the league and signed one of the best safeties in the league. Why? So 2 weeks ago you were all in, but now you're not? So
see, I would say this. I hear you, but it's more about glaring needs. Wide receiver is a major need. Glaring major need. They had to do something. Okay.
But that's, you're right. Doing something is signing Zach Pascal. Making yourself really competitive is trading for Calvin Ridley, which they tried to do. Doing something is signing Anthony Harris. Trying to really improve yourself is signing Marcus Williams. So that's why I'm saying if you trade for Ridley and sign Williams, you're doing what you're trying to like win game. You're trying to make yourself a contender.
To me, it's more about they had to do something major at both positions because it's been such a disaster receiver and safety. They just have not developed both positions well enough. And obviously Smith is on his way to being a really good player at receiver, but they had to do something. I see a little differently than you do, though I don't totally buy what Roseman said. I just think with 10 picks, particularly 3 first-rounders, you could take a big jump. And look, not that we know they weren't in the Tyreek Hill sweepstakes as you reported last week, but they have the ability to take a really nice jump this season.
Yeah, they do. They got to hit on those draft picks, though. So we'll see. We'll obviously be talking about that. Yeah. Anything else on Howie? I think that kind of covers what Howie said.
I mean,
they did talk about wanting to get, as we talked about, more pass targets. They don't.
That was
the whole run heavy thing.
Yeah, that was really interesting. And he said he didn't want to speak out of turn, but he said he was pretty clear. He and Sirianni talked about that. Although I think his numbers were off on the pass target number. Like I would look them up. I'm like, wait, the number he gave was not too far off, but he was going the top of his head. It's not a big deal. But the fact of the matter is, they're right. Now Goddard's got to stop fighting the football. He does have some drops, but he does get open a lot. The quarterback's got to hit him. This has been documented by us and Cosell and Jason Avant. Way too many misses from the quarterback with guys getting open and them not getting it, him not seeing the field better. The hope is with second year of this offense, these guys will get the ball more. They'll build better chemistry. with Ertz now long gone, the targets are there now. Obviously, this is March 31st, so we don't know now who they're going to draft at receiver, or where they're going to make a trade for a receiver. That guy, obviously, if they do that like we think they're going to do, that guy's going to have to get major targets. But the fact of the matter is, they're available targets here. They see the question is, it's one thing for Sirianni and the GM to talk about. It's very clear to me reading into it. I'll read into it. They want to throw the ball more. The numbers are just ridiculous. If you look at first 6 games, 34.7 attempts per game, most of the National Football League. The rest of the games, 24.9. Bottom 5 in pass attempts per game.
Yep.
We know why, because it didn't work. Asking the quarterback, he wasn't ready.
Right.
And to Sirianni's credit, I shocked that he did it. I'm assuming it was his idea. You don't know. I don't think I don't think anyone said, hey, you have to do this. So it's great credit to him, and it really helped. Obviously, the running game was unbelievable for majority of those rest of the game. So I'll be interested to see how many more attempts per game Hurts has.
It will be very interesting to see. I mean, the plan is clearly, as you just said, based on what you heard from Howie and Nick Sirianni, to open up the passing offense. All right. And they, as you have said, they showed you that that was their intention, because they tried to get Calvin Ridley. When that didn't work, they tried to get Allen Robinson. That didn't work. So they did get Zach Pascal. That's a whole different tier of wide receiver. Now they've got the draft. There's still free agency or trade. There are still some trade targets out there, so we'll see what happens. But they are going to try to upgrade this offense before the start of the season with the intention of being more of a balanced threat. I don't know if they're going to go back to 35 attempts like they were in the first 6 or 7 games either. I mean, I think that they've got to see what Jalen Hurts could. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the first 3 weeks are a little bit more like last year's first 7 games, but not to that high of extreme. But they're going to want to see if Jalen Hurts has made the improvements that they need him to make to be able to throw the ball more and be more of a balanced offense. So no doubt about it. And if it works out, that's great. They're gonna be really interesting. If it doesn't work out, it's gonna be a tough season, because even if they have to go back to the ground to win games, you know that they're not going to want to do that sustainable past 2022. They're not going to just be a ground team. They're not going to be the Ravens for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
No,
I don't believe
it'll
that
never be
that's what they're
acceptable with Geoff Lurie's owner. He was actually asked about. They didn't really answer the question directly.
Right.
But it'll never be acceptable for this organization to be a running team. It just won't. I don't care what they say. It'll never happen. Mm-hmm. So I will tell you this: if Hurts struggles early, I mean, if them coming out throwing, well, again, we have no answers. We're in March, but if they become a passing team again and start the season, it's not working.
Right.
Won't be good for Hurts, because there's only so much they're going to put up with. They want a passing game. This is not the way this. I mean, my goodness, the movement that Banner and Lurie came in with, and I'll be next time. We haven't had Joe on in a while. We'll get him. We're certainly on in April. I'll be interested to see what he thinks. We haven't talked to him in months about this becoming a running team. Mm-hmm. I know he's complimentary of Sirianni to do what he didn't want to do, but was best for the football team, and that was great coaching. But the fact of the matter is, it'll never be acceptable for long term for this team. Actually, for the short term, they did it, but long term, right, running team, this is not ever going to be Geoff Lurie's team like that. No. We all know that.
Yes, that's right. Speaking of, when does the NFL schedule come out? It's been later and later every year.
It should be. It's somewhat time before the draft. Sometime before.
Yeah, it's usually like a week or 2 before the draft, right? So we should be coming. I can't wait to see the schedule. I'm fascinated by it, because I was fascinated by last year's schedule. The way it was so top heavy with all those really good teams in the first 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I nailed it. I said I thought that they might only come out of the first 7 weeks with 2 or 3 wins, which is right where they were 2-5 after 7. Yeah. So I can't wait to see the schedule. It'll be a lot different. All right, so let's get into the owner. Obviously, let's first point to our friends to PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That is their motto. So make sure you're checking out all their great coverage at PHLSportsNation.com. And you can find them on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Now let's pause real quick for a word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars headquarters out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, the owner spoke. Let's break
You want
this
to do
thing
Sirianni
down.
first, though?
Well, we kind of covered what he said in the passing game, right? I mean, is there something else that stuck out
Well,
to you?
just a couple things which I found kind of interesting. Well, the love he had for Barnett. I just want to read this quote because this, I like. I don't know Sirianni. I want to believe because I look the thing we've already poked holes in his comment about Quez Watkins could be the best number 2, could be that he's ever coached. It's just that, but again, their actions speak better than their words. Ridley and Allen Robinson. There might have been others, by the way. We know they had a small interest in Juice with Schuster. But look, this quote to me, I trying to be nice about this, but I find a hard time believing he believes this. Quote, Derek Barnett is everything that embodies what we want and characteristics of a player. He's tough. He's competitive. He's got a high football IQ. He's got a high character. He loves football. Man, I love Derek Barnett. Is he? I don't even know.
High football IQ really makes you fall off the chair, doesn't it?
That's what I mean. It's like, it's to start our show. You were talking about, they're shoveling a bunch of manure. I
got bulldozer level.
Well, here's my
shovel.
I knowing just the way that the GM works, I know he listens to coaches. I know he won't shove a player down their throats if they don't want him. So I'm assuming Sirianni wanted him back. So, okay, he's competitive. Okay, true. He's tough. Okay. High football IQ. Now, you could be smart as a football player, but do some stupid crap with the bad penalties. We all know about it. It's no secret. And we know that Sirianni was mic'd up. He had to explain what he said about it's always him. That comment. But man, I love Derek Barnett. What does he love? We just outlined it, 20 minutes ago or so about his issues. He's wildly inconsistent. He's streaky, and then you don't hear from him for a while. Like, what? Why would you want him back? Like, what? I mean, it's one thing if they got 1 year, $3 million. You go, oh man, you have to do that. But it's double that for 1 year. And I want to know what he's seeing. I don't know.
I wonder if they kind of just, as a staff, sat down with Howie, the front office, and they, had a list of free agent defensive ends, because we all agree they had to sign a defense. You needed a body at defensive end. You need more than one, but they needed at least one in free agency. And they looked at the list of defensive ends, and they felt like it wasn't an impressive one, and just figured it's better to have someone that you're more familiar with than try to bring in a guy who doesn't know your system. That's the only thing I can think of. That it just they didn't have their socks knocked off by guys like Arden Key or Charles Harris or anybody else. Like they just were not, I don't know.
I mean, Key. I know Greg liked Arden Key's tape. Cosell did.
I loved Arden Key. Yeah,
he's now with the Jaguars. He signed Wednesday with them. But yeah, it's puzzling. They're going to have to answer this. If this guy doesn't show up, if he's his usual self, very wildly inconsistent, dumb penalty here and there, I'm going to start questioning, is it more because they want their own guys back?
Right.
To me, you want some. I know he's a young veteran. I understand that part of it, but I have no problem with people questioning it. I get the rotational part of it. Absolutely fair. I had some really good comments on our boards. There was actually some very reasonable, thought out comments from our listeners or some of the guys on our Facebook board, which you can sign up for if you're new to our show, folks. But just to move this along here, I'm still a little dubious of this stuff, and I just have not seen it. And basically, people we've spoken to, no one's really seen the consistency from. So they like him again more than everybody does outside the building.
Yeah. What else on Nick? I mean, he talked about wanting to improve the pass game. He talked about feeding hot hand. I guess what I don't understand is when he says that we want to get to the ball in the hands of the guys who are making plays. Did they not? I feel like the two playmakers that they had last year were Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, and those guys got the ball a lot. And Quez got it when he could, but we feel we felt at times that they needed to get the ball to Jalen Reagor in certain ways to get him warmed up. And I don't know that I heard that in Nick Sirianni saying we have to get the ball to the hot hand, but I just don't know what he envisions that's different, because to me, he's not the quarterback. He can only call the play. It's the quarterback who's got to get the ball into the hands of the hot-handed player, but I felt like the quarterback actually did that. I mean, and I don't know, were they hot-handed because he targeted them more frequently, most often, or vice versa? To me, there's chicken egg going on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Goddard got the ball. Devontae Smith got the ball. The thing that they didn't do, the screen game was not great with their running backs.
Right.
Gainwell's got to get the ball. He's got to be a factor. We know how much the staff really wanted him. He certainly flashed. No doubt about that, but he needs to be more of a factor on explosive plays. That's the thing that they lack with him. What they call explosives. They need more out of him on that area, but he's certainly very gifted. His tape was pretty good last season, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it. He just missed some big plays, but they still need to figure it out with him. But I know it's 1 year. The staff is new. First time they've worked together for the most of the new guys, obviously. So we'll see how it goes. But I find it interesting that they both said, and Roseman talked about it, that they both agreed, the GM and the head coach, that the top guys need even more targets. So we'll see. Well, but again, if you become a running team like they did, what do you expect?
I don't know. Did you like his Freudian slip about how the passing game was a weakness, but he's not really calling it a weakness?
Right. I know. They don't want to criticize the quarterback. Look, it's even the biggest Hurts backers know he's a developing passer. I know, and it's a fair point that it's been rare in his life to work in the same offense 2 years in a row. I'll accept that, but the tape does not match the numbers. The tape was very underwhelming for a good period of the season. He had some really good games. The Kansas City game, we've outlined some of the games. The Atlanta game was a layup game because they didn't really ask him to throw the ball. He wasn't really challenged, but he showed some promise some games. Some it was dreadful. But again, they never drafted him to be the starter, but here we are. He's the guy. And he's got to take a step, and this is it. But also the front office has got to help him.
Absolutely. And ownership too. So can we cross over now into Jeffrey Lurie?
Oh, this one's gonna be fun. This
will be fun. So let's get to the real bombshell of a statement, and that's Jeffrey Lurie responding to the question about his involvement, saying that he's actually a little less involved. And you know what, Adam? He might be right about that, because Jeffrey has always been heavily involved. Now, there's a couple of periods we've talked about during his tenure where some things went happen and he was a little bit more distant from the team than normal. But since he bought the team, he has always been heavily, heavily involved. And I bet you he answered that sort of with the fingers crossed behind the back, saying, I know when I first took over this team, man, I was involved in every single thing going on. And now I've got good people in place, so I don't have to be.
Well, Joe was.
Of course. He had people to be there for him. But he is a very involved owner. And by the way, there's nothing wrong. We have talked about the 5 to 6 owners in this league, the 25% of the owners in the league that need search firms to find their own head coaches, right? Because that's how clueless and absent that they are. So there's nothing wrong with being involved the way he says it as a CEO type head coach. But to say he's less involved, and then I'm going to open up now, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 instances where maybe my feelings were a little bit more rooting that interest than others. Just so happens to be one is one of the best right tackles in the league, Lane Johnson. The other is one of our best draft stories ever in Jordan Mailata. And the other is a guy we didn't get, but turned out to be a Super Bowl champion quarterback in Russell Wilson, right? Those are the 3 that he admits to being sort of involved with. And then that stuff about him picking J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, no, that was just a tie, and I gave my blessing. Like, where do you begin with that?
Well, he didn't pick him. I just to be clear, we never reported that.
He didn't pick him.
No, we never even said anything close to that. What we said is he influenced the pick
heavily.
And by the way, I was there. I mean, I'm sure he saw me there. We reported this 3 years ago, and we know others reported as well. But we never said he made any pick. He influenced it. By the way, his information said he did. Whether he wants to admit it or not, here's my problem with what he said, and I really appreciate that he was willing to address it. I know he was annoyed that he felt there was an inference that he influenced it. He should never give his opinion on a player. He should say, guys, if you want me to break the tie, and by the way, it wasn't really a tie. They had Paris Campbell. We were told back then 3 years ago, very strongly by three or four people that are at least three of them. I don't think any of them are with the team anymore. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get into who these people were, but people who would know. Okay.
Yeah.
Paris Campbell's a little bit higher. It's very close, by the way. But here's the point. Jeffrey was asked, these are his words. They asked him, well, who do you like? And he said, Arcega-Whiteside. He shouldn't have done that because here's the problem. When the owner comes out and says that, he's not going to have an impact. Of course he has an impact.
Right.
I'll give you an example. It's a little stronger, but Ray Farmer was the general manager of the Browns. My reporting at the time on Johnny Manziel, I said it was going to happen because Jimmy Haslam wanted it to happen. Mm-hmm. Now, this is different. This is a franchise quarterback.
Right.
Marketing and everything. Their whole building was obsessed with Johnny Manziel. Okay.
Right.
But the owner never told him, Ray, after Banner was fired, they never told him to draft Manziel, but it was heavily influenced.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, on a lesser point, but it's still equally important. When the owner says, oh, well, I like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, well, of course, if I'm...
you're Howie Roseman, what are you thinking now, right?
Right. I don't want to take the other guy because what happens if it doesn't work out? Then he may hold it against me. We know the owner loves Howie. We know his contract. But the fact of the matter is, you don't say anything. What Jeffrey should have said is, look, guys, I'm not going to say it. Take who you want. You don't want my opinion.
Right.
That's the part he didn't say. He should have said in his press conference on Tuesday. I appreciate the hell out of him willing to address it. And I get that he was offended by some of the inferences. But Jeffrey, you should know, no one ever reported that he ever told anyone. No one. I know the stuff that's out there. I know what we reported 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. We never even came close to saying that he told them to take him. Absolutely bleeping not. And I take offense to something he said, and I'll leave it at that. And I'm a huge supporter of his. But I'm going to call BS when I hear it. And I was there. And to even assert that and I don't know. Do you know of any report that said that he made the pick or he told him to take him? I don't know.
Just that he heavily influenced the pick, just like you said. He had influence on the pick. We just outlined how. The bottom line is that if you have a board and you stick to your board, this doesn't even become an issue, right? If Paris Campbell was higher on their board, then take the guy who's on. Now it's easy to look back and say, well, that didn't work out either. He's hurt. But Paris Campbell, it doesn't matter. The point is your process. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Right. And listen, I get that Jeffrey is involved. But you just can't. He needs to understand he cannot influence any pick. I'm sorry. You just stay out of it. This is why Howie and his group and Andy Weidel and their group, this is why they do all the scouting. They don't need it to someone. I used this term a year ago or so to subvert the draft process. I know that this one, he did it unintentionally. He didn't think it had any impact, which sure as hell did. And that's it. Let's move on.
Yeah. Listen, 2019, 2020, they were disasters from a process standpoint. And the drafts weren't great either, but they were just disasters from a process standpoint. And they sowed some really, what's the word I'm looking for? It sowed some feelings of consternation for a lot of people in that building. Like that, there was not a good feeling going on after those drafts because of everything we've talked about those two drafts. So, and the process being bad. And by the way, here's the thing: if you're gonna sort of massage a story, and you're trying to talk about your lack of involvement, and your way of trying to do that is then saying my only personal feelings were the 3 picks that happen to be great, and then the one I'm known for that's not great, I have nothing to do with. I mean, that's the part that fans caught on immediately. They just said, wait a minute, you just picked 3 guys that you said you had a quote unquote rooting interest, and they all happen to be great picks, 2 for them, 1 for another team, but that you left. And then the one guy you're saying you had no involvement in wound up being a bad miss by the team. How transparent does that look? I mean, it looks like you're intentionally lying or being disingenuous about it. So he shouldn't have even gone into that, to be honest with you, because it made him look worse.
Yeah, I think he was offended. I understand how he felt because he felt he had no influence on the Arcega-Whiteside pick. but unintentionally he sure as hell did.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to understand, unless you're sitting there, he can do this. He owns the team, but it's one thing if he had gone and watched tape with the front office, and they pointed out all the weaknesses and strengths of Campbell and Ortega-Whiteside. He said, guys, we all sat together. It's pretty clear it's Ortega-Whiteside. I know it's your pick, but man, you just asked me, and I like JJ.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, still shouldn't have done it though. But he never talked about. I'm sure he wouldn't want to admit this, although I have no problem with it. I would love to know if he watches tape with these guys. Who the hell knows? But it's disingenuous, and I'm just not going to agree with him. Sorry.
Yeah. So one other comment I wanted to talk to you about that he made that I don't know what to make of it. I mean, to me, it also reeks of being disingenuous or spinning a prior philosophy, but he was talking about the idea of a franchise quarterback. Now, for as long as we've covered this team and known Jeffrey Lurie and heard him speak, he has talked about the obsession with winning a Super Bowl, and you have to have a dynamic passing game, and to have that, you have to have a dynamic quarterback. I mean, he talked about that ad nauseam. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, I can't let this go away. To say that those three guys that were your only real rooting interests, Mailata, Lane Johnson, and Russell Wilson, when everybody in the world knows you wined and dined Carson Wentz at dinner, and you had your franchise move up twice in the draft to go get him, and then not mention that. I guess he was completely removed from that process of getting. That wasn't one.
That was a caravan, man.
I mean, come on. I mean, he went to Fargo to have dinner with Bismarck, wherever they went in North Dakota, to have a big dinner with Carson Wentz. But somehow that one never made it into his personal rooting ones. Amazing.
He was involved, but I don't know if he said, okay, did they take they took a poll, if I remember.
Mm-hmm.
This is going back 6 years ago. I know it was the coaches in front of whatever. They took some kind of poll, and there was guys on Goff's side, guys on the Wentz side.
Yeah,
so long ago. I don't know what vote I don't know what side he voted on, but you're right. He's involved in that. I wish we, I'm sure it never happened. I wish ITB got to sit down with him, and I'd love to have a real talk, even off the record. Just say, wait a minute, Geoff and I are calling BS on this, Geoff.
Right?
Challenge us. Let's go.
Right. So back to what he was saying, what we've always heard him say about you need to have the franchise quarterback, the dynamic passing game, to have the dynamic passer to fit the dynamic passing game. And he started talking this time around about how it's kind of a crapshoot now about whether you're going to pick a quarterback high who's going to be the guy that you want him to be. It almost feels like he's now reacting to the post Carson Wentz era. And he brings up Josh Allen as a guy, and he says something like, did the Bills know that they were getting a franchise quarterback in Josh Allen? Did they feel like they had a franchise quarterback in Josh Allen right away? The answers were clearly no and no. First of all, why are you speaking for the Bill? I mean, I thought that was very out of character for him to do. And I think, yes, when the Bills drafted him, they were expecting him to be a franchise quarterback and hoping he would be developing one, which he has. 100%. So what? So I don't understand what the point he was trying to make, but it almost felt like he's now trying to walk back the idea of going after a franchise quarterback and now saying it's kind of a crapshoot. You just don't know if you're going to really get that guy you want. What happened to being in the relentless search for one to now you got to proceed with caution, which is, again, it seems like a different angle coming from him because of what's happened to the team.
See, he's trying to say, hey, nobody knows. I think what he meant, again, we don't know, but my analysis of what he said was, hey, the Bills took a quarterback who struggled year one, and they didn't know. And that's just, it's true. I mean, it was it was a struggle for Josh Allen. And then remember, again, when you look at this situation, Jalen Hurts was never taken to be the starter. That's the thing that Jeffrey has. I know no one brought that up, but you and I brought it up 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're forced to because it didn't work out with Wentz. Wentz wanted out, and they Wentz forced his way out. Hurts had to be the guy, but that's the thing here. Hurts was never drafted to be the starter ever.
Mm-hmm.
Please, they drafted Hurts 9 months after they extended Wentz's contract. So, whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is. That just wrapped up an interesting weekend. And again, I thought I might have to like do a whole kind of column for InsideTheBirds.com on what Jeffrey said and what the reality is, but I didn't because the fans were onto it. They sort of they agree with us, maybe not 100% with us, but a lot of them read the comments or heard the comments and felt like things just didn't add up right. And some of them were insulted by some of those stories Jeffrey told that made him look like he was not involved, and that he was only involved in picks that worked and not in ones that didn't. And it just didn't come off good. Nobody came off from the weekend or week of press conferences feeling like really good about what was said at the microphone there. And
well, the green,
you know what? It doesn't matter.
The green jersey.
What? Yes. By the way, that was great. That was genius. Yeah. That was like, let me start off my press conference by making everybody really, really, really happy. We'll talk about the uniforms going back to Kelly Green before I drop all this other stuff on them.
I'll say this. I want to give him credit for addressing the Thega-Whiteside. He didn't have to do that. No, I don't. We've said this. The fans don't like just the way he went about it, some of his comments, but I do give him credit. He didn't have to even bring the stuff. He didn't have to. He could say no comment, or the guys, I'm not going to get into that. And to his credit, he addressed it. But again, we basically ripped some of the stuff apart.
Yeah, I don't know how much credit. I mean, it's 2 years later, and it's kind of a spinned version of the story.
That's fine, but no, but I do believe, from what we know, he is telling the truth in that. With Thega-Whiteside, he never said, you guys have to draft this guy, but he fails to understand the influence that because he's the owner of the business, that when you give your opinion on someone who's going to be added to your football team, the front office is going to take that. Boy, we better go with it. Just human nature says that.
Yeah, but do you really think he fails to understand that, or he understands that really well, so he can get away with saying,
I don't think
I like our Thega-Whiteside, but you guys do what you want to do.
Well, I don't. Okay, I don't think I don't think he believes that his words had an impact when it clear or enough or wait. He doesn't think they had as much impact as they wound up having. Period.
Okay, I'm not sure I 100% agree with you on that. So, but who knows? It doesn't matter. It's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
And that was his side of the story. There was one other thing. He answers questions. I totally believe that this is intentional.
All right.
I'm not saying he's not a verbose guy to begin with. He very much is. He likes to talk. I do think he likes to hear the sound of his own answers. But you only get a limited amount of time. You get like maybe 35, 40 minutes or whatever it is. If you notice, he takes a good sometimes 5 to 8 minutes to answer a question. The longer you answer a question, the less time you have to get more questions in. I think he likes answering fewer questions, so he goes into detail as much as he can with each question that he's asked, so that by the end of the time, it was only 5 questions being asked. Because I could have sat there, and I'm sure the press corps who was there, they probably had 35 more questions they wanted to ask this guy.
Yeah.
But you only get a certain amount of time, right? I mean, Bill Belichick could answer 500 questions in the same amount of time because he's just going to go, we like that guy. We're not going to talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, you don't want that extreme either. But my point is, I think he's intentionally long-winded to make sure that the answers are drawn out to limit the number of questions.
I don't know that. I mean, he's been a rambler.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I suspect that.
No, but he rambles. He's very insightful, but he does ramble sometimes because he doesn't know what the questions are coming, and he probably doesn't want to. We've said this over the years. He doesn't want to admit to stuff. You were kind of alluding that to earlier, and it's kind of like he knows, he's aware of the reporting that's out there. This is what their PR department does. They make him aware, or he reads it himself. One way there, he knows. So sometimes he doesn't agree with it, whether whoever's reporting it, and he wants to defend himself. That I get it. He should do that. But we're also going to call BS when we know the truth. Right. That's just, I get it. Nobody wants to look bad, or nobody wants the truth out, or they have their own version of it. We have ours. So are other reporters, fans, they read, they have questions, and I'm glad he had the press conference. I didn't ask a question because I wanted to be fair with the local guys are there all the time, but I would have taken a couple things in a different direction. I wanted to go on Hurts and his involvement on that. That's what really was not addressed. But we know we know the Athletic had a report. You had a great nugget. we just don't have time to deal with that. We're sorry, folks. We're gonna have to get the Barnett stuff on Monday show.
Okay.
We'll make sure we devote a little bit more, because there's just stuff out there that's just not right. But we need to get that stuff corrected. But you can look at the Barnett contract a variety of ways. There's a little bit more guaranteed money than that's out there. It's really more $7 million, not $5.5 million, based on what we're told. But I want to know the structure and how they're getting to that. Look, I was fascinated with the Lurie press conference because I had no idea what the hell to expect when I went there. You never know.
Yeah.
But, I remain a big fan of his, but when I think he doesn't want to make himself look bad, or he wants to downplay his involvement, I'm not going to stand for it when he does. We're so many people from Inquirer, Comcast Sports, and us, Athletic. We know the truth. So sorry, you're not gonna slide on some of the stuff. That's the way it is.
There you go. And the fans didn't give him a free pass either. All right, so we'll get into some of the more contractual stuff with Barnett on the next podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work. His YouTube channel is called Sports Talk with Broads. His website is called broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you, especially on Fan Appreciation Pod Day. We thank you for flying with us inside the bird.